Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Growth Shift. Today, I'm excited to welcome Kate Zappitelli, Principal Consultant of the Karrikins Group. Thank you for joining me. We're going to kick off today by learning about Kate's background, then explore the biggest trends, successes, and challenges she's seeing in the market. Kate, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, what your company does, and your background?
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Appreciate being here. As you mentioned, a principal consultant at Karrikins Group, and our work is around helping leaders and leadership teams, specifically executive leaders, figure out how they want to work together. So we know that there's often organizations are very clear about their why, their mission, vision, values. They've spent a lot of time and energy on their strategy, their what, and they haven't often talked about how they're going to lead together from a behavioral perspective. So we're a behavior change company and focused on doing that work. I'm going to make a plug for my EO, Julie Williamson. She published a book called Make How Matter, which is our mission. And the work that we do is really focused on getting clear on what mindsets and group dynamics are getting in our way of getting the outcomes that we want. And I've been with Karrikins Group for 7 years, and I'm also a leadership coach and genuinely feel like I'm living my life's purpose. So I'm very excited about this work and passionate about it. My background is in higher education, and I've found that moving into the consulting world that there's a lot of similarities between PhDs and MDs and CEOs. There's a very similar personality type, and so getting to work with senior leaders who are excited about growth and personal development and getting their teams to work in a more effective way is very fulfilling work for me. So very excited about that.
How did you make the transition over to Karrikins Group as an executive coach from higher education background?
A mentor of mine from college, she was working at the Karrikins Group, and I was looking for a new opportunity, and just through that relationship got into consulting, and it was a big transition for me, actually. So I hadn't had any experience in the private sector, hadn't had a lot of business experience, and so learning the language of business and the way that it's a different pace, certainly from higher ed to private sector work, and then consulting specifically, but really fun and exciting, and got into coaching about 4 years ago and have found that to be very fulfilling work.
Fantastic. Well, now that we know how your journey began, let's zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger landscape that we're working in. What major trends are shaping the consulting space right now?
Specifically for leadership consulting, we're finding there's a definite trend around, well, I think always communication. Communication, it tends to be the pull through, like where challenges happen is in communication. But the communication that breaks down is around folks working in silos. I think you probably hear that a lot. So that still tends to be the case where we work with a lot of executives and they say, everyone's really good in their verticals or their things, but they're not so great about working horizontally. And so the cross-functional collaboration and the communication across at the executive level is where a lot of challenges happen. And we've found that when the most senior leader, so the CEO or president, has that broad perspective and understands the value of understanding those intersections, that's where we see a lot of impact, is when the most senior leader says we need to work together in a new way because we're not seeing the growth that we want. We're not having the conversations that we need to have because we're so stuck in our functions or our silos. So that's, I think, a trend that's probably continues to happen. I don't know that it's necessarily new. Obviously, AI is very exciting and comes up in almost all of our conversations. And there's a lot of excitement around AI and trepidation. And how do we get sort of a new mindset around seeing AI as a tool and an learning opportunity? And I'd say there's a strong focus on talent retention. So talent comes up a lot, and succession planning, or what we like to call it sustainable leadership, is a big conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, those are great. Let's talk about that AI piece a little bit. You said looking at it as a learning opportunity. Help me understand a little bit what you guys are looking at, or you're using, or looking to use.
Yeah. So I think well, maybe the mindset that AI is a tool to help us do our work better versus AI is the monster that's going to wipe everybody out. I mean, I'm using really dramatic language there,
Sure.
but I feel like that mindset around let's experiment, let's try different tools. For us personally, we're not getting super locked down on one specific tool. As a consultancy, we're trying lots of different ones to see how they work. And we know that there's a lot of changes happening there. So we also want to be open to new tools that are coming out and not get sort of stuck on one. And for
Sure.
me personally, I found it is very helpful as like a thought partner and just so an idea generation tool. And then I love hearing my colleagues, the different tools that they're using. And, like we talk a lot about Perplexity and Claude and ChatGPT, Copilot and Gemini, sort of like a lot of different tools have different benefits, I guess. And so I think that's fun just to see it as an exploratory exercise.
Sure, absolutely. So it sounds like mostly in helping with writing communications and research, and that's the AI is being used that way mostly, would you say?
For me personally, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's how I use it. I did just have we had a cool demonstration by another organization that helps an AI tool that helps teams collaborate in an asynchronous way. You can do the work together and then see the results live. So I appreciated that tool and that you could rank different people's perspectives and you could share different thoughts and give like a thumbs up and a thumbs down. And then at the end, it populated like, this is where you got the most activity. These are the ideas that, this tool could help generate. Cool.
So what's a recent win or milestone that you're especially proud of?
We are very excited that a lot of the organizations we've worked with are global and that they have started with our most senior leaders and then have rolled this work out throughout their organization. And so we have a client success story around an organization that's a global water technology company. They are about, I think, 5 billion in revenue. And their senior leadership team has done this alignment work over the last several years and they've seen huge improvements in their acquisitions with conversations with their board, with having retention at the executive level, and then rolled this out to their next level leaders around like 150 people or so, and a little bit broader as well. But seeing that the impact of having your most senior leaders aligned on how they want to work together, communicating that, making that visible, talking about the hard conversations that they have, their own growth journeys that they've been on, has had a huge impact on this organization. And now their next level leaders are saying, great, we need to bring this, we need to roll this out even more, but we need to still continue to talk about where we're getting hung up in our mindsets or our group dynamics that are holding us back. So that's a huge success for us that it's become part of how they all work together. And then for me personally, I've been super excited. I worked with an organization. They're a global real estate development company. And I've been working with a particular region in California for the last 4 years. So I've seen them create a vision together, roll that out to their executive team. The executive team is part of that experience. The director levels got involved, like how do we work together in a new way? And then the entire region, including field operators and staff, like in the office, went through a program as well. And so to see from like nothing to 4 years later how this work has impacted that organization, it has been really, really cool. And just the conversations they're having and the way that they're running meetings, like that has really, they have the vision on the wall in different places. They bring it up often. So to see them really lean in and embrace this work has been really neat.
Yeah, that's super exciting. What would you say is something that's currently working really well for you right now in working with your clients or acquiring clients?
I have probably this is an old tool or way of looking at work, but relationships. I mean, that I find that to be very successful to really invest in relationships and stay in touch with people and get to know them as humans and what's important to them, what's important in the work that they're doing. But the relationship investment has been huge for me, and I really love people genuinely. So I find that like a really fun part of my job is I get to know really smart people who are focused on collaboration and working together better, but they start with self. That's a language that we use a lot of how do you start with self in your work. And so I find that very successful is to build those relationships and maintain those relationships. And that certainly helps in the business development world. But for me personally, my network continues to expand and I get to learn so much. I learn so much every time I have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, sure. With those wins in mind, let's flip to the other side of the journey, the tough stuff. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced recently?
Well, when the communication breaks down and there is when executive leaders have a hard time finding a common ground, that makes this work certainly more challenging and really has an impact on their organization. So I think maybe when people get locked into like their perspective and aren't as curious about about the other perspective or just about a new way of looking at things, that is hugely challenging. Nobody wants that. So the communication breakdown and people getting stuck in their specific ways of doing things has, I think, always probably been a challenge, but is certainly a challenge now.
Sure. So those are challenges that your clients potentially experience. How about you personally as a consultant with Karrikins Group? What challenges are you seeing in the industry as like what are some of the hurdles that you guys are working through?
Yeah. I mean, I think um the work that we do has a long sales cycle. And so that's a challenge that we're up against. And it's a little bit hard to give a specific ROI on the work of this. So like getting people to buy it can be challenging because they need to be really motivated personally to say, I want to work together better. This is going to help my company. Our leadership team has these challenges, or we would call blockers that we're working through. But when people aren't coming to the table with that sort of self-awareness, obviously that's challenging for us. We always want to be relevant, so we're constantly working on what are different tools that we can have, or in this case, like what are videos we can make, or like how can we get our work, our name, and our brand out there in a way that resonates with folks. So we do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, but I think that's a challenge that we have is getting our name out there.
Sure. Are most of your clients through referrals with those relationships that you've been building? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Okay.
think to your point, like then how do you get the net new clients
Right.
exactly without those relationships? Yeah, that's
Sure.
definitely a challenge.
Sure. And who's your typical client? Is it a small business? Is it a small business executives? Is it medium, large?
Yeah, large. So our ideal client is, 200 million to 5 billion in revenue, and often enterprise leaders. So organizations that have a lot of complexity in our matrix. In Stile, that tends to be a good fit for us because those leaders have a lot of challenges already and need to work together in a better way. That's enterprise leaders at a global level, ideally.
Okay. Gives me a pretty good picture. All of that kind of sets the stage perfectly for what's ahead. Let's look forward. What are your top priorities for the next 6 to 12 months?
We're focused on how to utilize AI in our organization and how we can help that with our clients. We're focused on getting more opportunities at a broader level. So, Julie, who wrote the book, she's really working on getting on a platform and having more visibility. We have a learning and development program that we've run for the last couple of years, and we're trying a new model, more of a self-directed on-demand model. So that's exciting. We're working on different programs that we can offer to leaders. So one's around storytelling or strategy. We're working on really getting this, how getting executive leadership teams to focus on how they work together as one of their priorities. So that's one of our priorities. And we do a lot of facilitation around strategy. We do board alignment. We do workshops. So we have a variety of different alignment solutions and getting those out to the market.
Sure. Is your work in person or online? Both. Okay.
Yeah, we
Fantastic.
found a lot of success after COVID with moving to like an all virtual facilitation. And now we find that a lot of people like some sessions in person and some hybrid, or I mean, some virtual.
Sure. Sure. So, what's a piece of advice you'd give to someone starting out in the consulting industry today?
To be very curious and not make assumptions. Our work is very co-creative, and so we say we're doing this work with you, for you. It's not to you, by us. And I think that is a huge that's a differentiator, that we're not coming in and saying this is what you need to do and this is how you need to show up. And we're saying, this is what we heard you say, and how would you like to do this in a new way together? So I think the co-creation mindset is very helpful. It's a very collaborative mindset. And personal accountability, I think, is something else I would say is a game changer when you can take responsibility for how you're showing up, what questions you're asking, how you're communicating, and trying new things if those don't work.
Fantastic. That's such a great note to kind of end on. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and something that I find helpful is to like, what are the gifts and opportunities in all situations? I think that's a helpful mindset for me that I found helpful in my personal life and my professional life, is to see opportunities or challenges as opportunities.
Fantastic. Well, Kate, thanks so much for joining me today. For listeners who want to connect and learn more, where can they find you online?
www.karrikinsgroup.com is a great place to find us.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure having you.